was only saying it to the guys and all. I hope I don't forget to turn on the mic. What's happening out there, guys? Hopefully I'm coming in to you all loud and clear out there. It is the third birthday of the podcast today, guys. Yeah, I didn't realise that. Somebody had said it to me there the other night, and I was like, geez, you're actually right. The 15th of May, 2020. Yeah, 2020, right in the middle of that bloody whole COVID crack. We started this off. I suppose I was largely inspired by the whole COVID nonsense, as it took away a lot of our ability to get together and protest and stuff. Excuse me, I was celebrating a little bit before the show there with some volcano bags. The remnants of one here. But as I was saying, one of the protests that I held during the whole COVID thing was in April of 2020. Remember April of 2020? It should have been an entire month of 420. I was really disheartened, I suppose, by that whole thing, that we weren't able to get out there and protest, because before that, like back in 2019, before the whole pandemic thing kicked in, I was looking forward to April 2020 because it was going to be a whole month of 420. So therefore, like a month of cannabis pride. And that was kind of stolen away from us. But look, we won't fret over it because there was a lot worse things happened over that pandemic, I suppose. But every cloud has a silver lining. I went online on the 20th of April 2020, and I done a little video on Facebook, I think it was, over on the... I was running for election not long before it, so I think I had it was the Facebook page for Vote Martin Condon #1 on Facebook. That Facebook page, I went live on April 20th of 2020, and I sat down and I smoked a big doobie throughout the entirety of the video and just kind of chatted. But before that, I suppose, as I said, I was running for the election, and there was a lot of interaction there online from the content I was putting out at the time on that. So all of that fed into, Roll Around to May. Cassidus Drugas is out there as well in the hot box, and he also fed into this, what led to the start of the show, as we often had long conversations and been saying afterwards, geez, we should have recorded all of that. That would have made a decent podcast episode. And we've since done a few of those episodes. One of them went on for, I think it's the longest one still to date. I don't know, we were on for like 4.5 hours. Sorry, we just fill up the volcano bag there once more. Even though actually, as it's like the 3-year anniversary, feck it, let's get the bong fired up. I did bring it along just to do an old bong hit with you, anyway. A little bit of civil disobedience on the podcast. Just, that bag, it's nice. The volcano's unreal, but not like hitting a bong. That bag looks nice and milky there. Oh, yummy. Shout out to everybody in the hot box as well, guys. Nice one for helping clear the cobwebs. And I suppose not going to spend too much time on the whole being missing and stuff. Initially, it was just looking after the kids, and I was planning a prompt return. But sadly, that didn't come to be. Things kind of hit the fan a little bit and stuff, but I am back here now, and I intend to stay back. So that's the intention. So my promise from here on out is a minimum of one live stream a week, and I'm going to do my very best as well to start getting back into organising guests to sit down and have interviews with, just once I know what my schedule is going to be like. But that's the promise going on. So the third birthday, we're gonna hit the floor running. I was looking for this piece of the volcano bag, and it was actually in there. But yeah, what a 3 years it's been. Jeez. A lot has happened over that time. I suppose the more larger thing that's happened for me anyway personally has been the birth of 2 kids. Both of which have actually been introduced, the announcement of on the Martin's World podcast, so that's a hell of an achievement for a podcast as well in a 3-year lifespan. Seeing two new, how would you call them, mascots. As Elijah is, he has been on the show when he was first born. You know, you've seen him up there on the shoulder. That famous episode. I don't know if hopefully you've all seen it with Phil Monk. I really enjoyed that conversation with Phil Monk because he himself was also a dad. But Elijah was asleep behind the green screen initially. And kind of somewhere halfway through the interview, Elijah was just like, "Hey, come here, lads, you can't keep talking about me." Not exactly in those words. It was a bit more of a wah wah wah. But I knew what he was saying. So Elijah found his way onto the screen back then, and yeah, I think Avery has said hi on her as well, didn't she? I believe. Could be wrong, but I do believe she has. uh, yeah, well, let's blaze this one up anyway, guys. As we're a few minutes past the 4:20, and I'm sure all you guys out there are well blazing on. Not that I'm not. So here's to another 3 years of podcasting, I suppose, of just having conversations, open-minded conversations, and let's hope that in the next 3 years that this show, you know, it went from very low production value to being what you see today is amazing. Like, look at this green screen and the whole lot. You know, we've got the intro, like impeccable, guys, isn't it? But we went from like low quality production to better quality production. I know from time to time the tech guy there at the side, you know, he forgets to turn on the mic and stuff, you know, and we blame John Finnegan. But as I say, hopefully over the next 3 years we see the show grow to a point where it's actually been broadcast from a social club, a cannabis consumption space, a cannabis dispensary of some sort, a place where people can come and socialize and also get cannabis. That is my dream, my aspiration, my motivation at the moment is to hopefully see one day a store opened, not necessarily called Martin's World, but where Martin's World can be broadcast from time to time, and we just have some chit chats with the people coming in and out, bring some guests in from outside as well. So we've definitely got dreams there to make the show bigger, better, you know. So let's blaze on up for that. All right, Shy Son. See Shy Son out there in the hot box as well, and Mr. Finnegan as well. It's all good, Mr. Finnegan. We'll always forgive you, but we love you. Gotta give a big shout out as well to Farag over there at Cork Herbal Products, who gifted us this bong there not too long ago. Absolutely amazing bong, well used as well, I have to say. Well used. Dahi, nice one as well. Big up, Martin. Congrats on 3 years of podcasting. Fair play to you, legend. Yeah, nice one. It's not something I thought I would be still doing after 3 years, to be very honest. I was hoping that we could have riled up enough of support there initially to get cannabis legalized, and you know, we could have just got it done, and that's what it would have been done for. I don't know. I never intend to do it as a long-term plan, but now that it's kind of here 3 years on, I'm looking forward, and I'm like, I could see myself doing another 3 years of this. All right, I certainly enjoy it, and hopefully, as I said, that the news will improve over that time as well. Green Tea, another epic guest of the podcast as well, I have to say. Another one of my favorite guests up there as well. An absolute hero when it comes to cannabis growing. An amazing green thumb that she has, and an even more amazing heart of gold there too she has. Go back if you haven't seen that interview. Green Tea was doing amazing work back then. And her situation has changed since then, but her motivation certainly hasn't. Green Tea says, didn't realize how much I missed the stream till today. Myself included, Green Tea guys. There's actually not a day that goes by that I don't be thinking about you. I'd be walking past this computer here. I'd be subscribed to the Irish Canna Clinic. Get over there and give him a subscribe on YouTube, and if you're on the other social media as well, I believe he's active on Instagram, Telegram, Facebook. So give him a follow on there as well under the same name. So that's the Irish Canna Clinic. An amazing interview that was done there not too long ago with the the mother of Abigail, that's Deborah Downey. I have to say, I honestly had to turn her off after like 10, 15 minutes because I was just crying too much. It was just too upsetting initially. I did get back and listen to it afterwards, but I wasn't prepared at all for what was to come in that opening part of that. And even now, I'm still feeling it, like just getting that, getting those feels, tingles up the spine. So I'll have a sip of water there before we get too choked up. But condolences to Deborah, and may Abigail rest in peace. But guys, check out that interview if for fear of me blubbering up here now if I keep talking about it. Rasher's out there in the audience as well. Bobby O'Brien, what's happening, Bobby? Absolute legend. Bobby sending over some amazing genetics there, hooking up the Irish crowd. Nice one for that, Bobby. And Rasher out there doing the distribution of those beans, preserving the genetics here in Ireland until a time in which it's legal to do so, because none of us would break the law and grow cannabis legally. No, not us. We're law abiders. Even though you see me there breaking the law earlier, but that was civil disobedience. The protest, totally different. Can you grow cannabis under the same pretense? I guess you can. Luke, what's happening? Says Aaron Martin, don't ruin it for me. I thought you had a high-rise apartment. I wish, Luke. Graham Parker out there as well, so hitting some Cali ice cream cake. Oh, sounds amazing. Some amazing flavors out there these days. I was with some of the lads there about 2 weeks ago, and one of the lads had some locally grown stuff again. It was, I think it was like a lemon cheesecake or something it was called. But just citrusy, flavorful. Oh, it was beautiful. But that was locally grown stuff. Like, he could have sold it as Cali and called it Cali all he wanted, put it into one of those packs. Like, it was up there with those flavors. But yeah. Who else is out there? Adam O'Brien says, pick a packet, fire up, come along. As we take hits from the bong. Yes, love it, Adam. Oh, Scantinist, what's happening, Scantinist? Guys, I have to pay respects to everybody in the hot box today, so forgive me before we move on, because I just want to give shout outs to everybody out there. Because the 3 years has been very much about E as well. As I said, we brought 2 kids into the world, but to be fair, the community that's grown around this as well has been huge. And I'd say maybe in time to come, there might be more people be bringing kids in as a result of some of the socialising that's gone on around the hot box. Luke says, sure, that's the most of the Cali anyway, it says, grown in Ireland. Yeah, that's true, actually. A lot of it is, somebody else said to me there that I want some Spally. I was like, Spally? And it's like, yeah, but it's Cali strains grown in Spain. It's like I heard it all now, like Spally. So that's Spanish Cali. I've heard of like UK Cali as well. So now they have Spanish Cali, they've got UK Cali. But at least the UK Cali, they're not calling it like Ucali or something, Spally, it just doesn't sound right. Spanish Cali, just call it what it is. California genetics grown in Spain. Some people just coming up with all sorts of wonderful names. Stephen Cav, what's happening, Steve? It's been a long time since we've seen each other, actually, pal. It's good to see you in the hot box anyway, and still bumping around online. But if you're ever up in Cork, pal, you know how to find me. Drop me a message anytime. And likewise, if I find my way down on that side of the island, I'll look you up, pal. Says, hey man, glad I caught you. Have to go soon, so we'll be back later. Hope life is well for you and all the community. Back at you, Steve, man. Hopefully everything's good in your world too, bud. Oh yes, and Barry Fields actually, he brought some new kids of a different species into the world. Got some more poppers. Congrats there on that one, and congrats to Loki. Pods 4420 out there as well says, nice one, Martin, and well done in 3 years of the Barton's World Show. Hope everyone is doing good these days. Yes, no complaints here anyway at the moment. If we start complaining, we'll never stop. Mr. Wes says, no, glad to have you, Martin. Nice one, Mr. Wes. Oh, forgive me there if I sound a bit hoarse or anything. Don't know where that's after coming out of. All Stephen's fault, maybe. But do guys get over and check out that one again. It's worth going back mentioning Irish Canna Clinic and the interview with Deborah Downey. He had green tea over there as well very recently. I believe Natalie O'Regan is going to be up there, if she's not already up there. And as I said, myself will be up there not too long. Santa Leon says, how many times do you inflate the bag from one bowl with the volcano? Depends on what temperature you have. Normally I just kind of leave it, I suppose, around a 6.5 and a 7. And I'll kind of go for maybe 2-3 bowls max, and I'll dump it out then into this. So this is all my already vaped bud, and as you can see, it's about quarter full, thereabouts. So I'll keep on tapping it into that then. So I don't mind. Sometimes I might like just put one bag through if I'm like socializing with some people and I just want people to really appreciate the flavor and stuff. Because I have longer bags as well. They're a bit bigger than normal. And I might just blow one bag up and pack a fresh bowl for the next person. And I don't mind dump because it's like it's not really going to waste. It's going into my collection and it gets used up afterwards. So happy days. And saying that now, the volcano bowl needs to be actually changed. We can do that as we look through the hot box. I haven't been forgetting anybody. I think I got everybody's comments out there actually as we say that now. Chilbert, legend. Actually got to meet the Chilbert in person there not too long ago. Absolute legend. Got to share a vape actually as well inside in the what was it? So some convention type center over there in Brighton, in the middle of the city. That was the United Patients Alliance over there in the UK. They relaunched with Clark French. Myself and Alicia went over there as part of the Patients for Safe Access. And yeah, I got to meet with Chilbert over there. I also got to meet with Billy Bonds, which was epic too. Myself and Billy got to share a few nice spliffs there on the beach of Brighton. And as I said, then myself and Chilbert even got to share an old vape inside in that convention centre. As all the other patients were actually able to medicate inside the venue. They were respecting the patient's right to be able to medicate, including inside, which was a really cool experience to even just see that. Amazing speakers there on the day as well. Hopefully those videos are maybe up online. Probably should have went live and broadcast some of that on the day, but the phone battery wasn't really the greatest. John Finnegan's after losing his lighter. Did you check your hand, John? Actually hilarious if it was in your hand. Oh, looking for my grinder now. Big old fucking thing. This will be hard to lose. Green tea, sending in some love. Nice one, green tea. So hopefully everybody's been good out there, guys. Hopefully nothing bad has befallen anybody out there in terms of getting caught with cannabis or anything. I know there's a couple of there's been a lot of stuff in the news that I really wanted to get and cover. And maybe we might backtrack over some of the more important stuff to highlight, because I know there was cases there over the last couple of months where patients have been brought to court. I know there's still the case of Patrick Moore, who's still locked up. So there's a lot there that needs to be covered over the last kind of couple of months that I've been missing. So give us time and we'll catch up on that. Mr. Wes says the countdown to Product Art is on. Yes, it is. August is only just around the corner. I believe it's the 18th to the 20th of August, if memory serves correct. But it's somewhere around that date anyway. So yeah, the countdown is certainly on. So right, let's get stuck on into the first piece of it, and it's a balls really to be getting back into this part of it, but Anyhow, anyhow, let's use that stream deck. Oh, this a bird. Boom. Boo. Boom. There we go. We'll just leave it up on this one. It says an overwhelmed emergency department struggling with numbers of drug related cases. So, guys, you might all be well aware now at the moment that the Citizens' Assembly is well underway. It's after holding two of the six sessions, the 6 weekend sessions that are going to be had. So there's going to be 4 more sessions to be had over the coming 4 months. The first weekend was it was over it was, yeah, I would say it was largely positive in that there wasn't a whole lot of stigma. There wasn't a whole lot of the kind of the stuff that you'd be used to. A lot of the misinformation around there. There was just open, honest conversations about drugs, the effects of drugs and stuff like that. Now, there is a criticism there that a lot of the conversation centered around a very small minority of people who would use drugs, i.e., those who would display problematic behavior or problems with their drug use, and very little focus or conversation around those who don't display any problems with their drug use. But that criticism aside, there were some very good conversations had, and even largely over the last one, there was a lot of very positive ones. The second day of this just gone weekend, it was an amazing conversation. I suppose it was an amazing contribution there given by the service workers out there in places like Cool Mines, Cumvera, and other places as well. I think that they brought them to Ashley House as well in Limerick was one of the places that were visited. But anyway, the citizens, what they spoke about afterwards, that they couldn't praise the people working there enough, and I think there was a lot of hatred there towards and this I would just say like displeasure, I suppose, with the government and their response to the problem around drugs and how they were treating the situation, because these services, had they been adequately funded, they'd be able to help more people, and the problems associated with certain segment of the drug using population wouldn't be as big. A lot of the problems we see where people fall into the cyclical nature of relapse and stuff like that is because these services are actually underfunded, and there's waiting lists and all of this. So I thought that was an amazing contribution there from the citizens to be coming in and really calling the government out and saying, why isn't there more being done on this? Why isn't there more funding available? And speaking about the human behind all of this as well, that the human behind all of this is forgotten about. So there was all of that aside. Then there was one guy on the stage over the weekend. His name is Dr. Chris Luke. And he talked about this, that the overwhelmed emergency departments are struggling with the number of drug-related cases, which this article then came out, and it's overstretched emergency departments are finding it increasingly difficult to deal with the number of drug-related cases presenting at emergency departments. And it talks about the Citizens' Assembly and Drugs visiting treatment centres in Dublin, and this meeting service users and staff. The team of 100 members will visit Coolbine Treatment Centre, the Merchants Quay, Ireland, to learn more about lived experience of drug use. Addressing the Assembly this weekend, emergency physician Dr. Chris Luke, as I said, he said that dealing with the consequences of drug taking is putting severe pressure on the system. He said that emergency departments are completely overwhelmed in every town and city in the country. The busiest of times for patients presenting with drug-related issues are the afternoons and evenings, and he said these people are coming into already bursting emergency departments, and that immediately makes it more difficult, said Dr. Luke. The number one problem is that we are already packed out. Drug issues can be very difficult to deal with as a result, and for every 10 people who take cocaine on a night out, one or more will proceed into severe cocaine-related delirium, agitation, and violence, as explained by Dr. Chris Luke. He said in some cases a person can suffer an acute stroke, heart attack, or seizure. So like, before we even go any further in that, that was just one part of the misinformation that was delivered there by Dr. Chris Luke over there. He delivered a statistic that he can't back up. There is no evidence out there to back up that statistic. that 1 in 10 people who take cocaine on a night out will proceed into severe cocaine-related delirium. Like, to be very honest, guys, come on, be very honest. How many people are out there actually on a night out taking cocaine? And if you were to believe that 1 in 10 people are experiencing this severe cocaine-related delirium and agitation and violence, like, we would be seeing and hearing about it on the news every weekend. Or every Monday morning, you know. Did you hear on the local radio station this morning about any crazy drug-related, drug-induced psychosis where a person got extremely aggressive over the weekend and, you know, punched people up just randomly in the street, you know, just out of nowhere? No, you don't hear that. You don't hear of that. And if there was truth behind that misinformation delivered by Dr. Chris Luke over the weekend, like, you would be hearing of that, because there's a lot of people out there taking cocaine on a night out. There's a lot. You go into any nightclub in the city, and like, I'm not really speaking from experience here. I'm really just assuming, based on my past experience, like, because I haven't been out. I'm 33 now, going on 34 this year, and I haven't been in a nightclub since, my early 20s, like, at best. So my experience there is not that fucking recent. But I'd imagine you would say if there's 200, 300 people in a nightclub, that there's at least 30 or 40 people in there doing cocaine. At least, surely. Would I be wrong? Would that be a fair stretch of the numbers? Would you say it's more? Would you say it's less? Some people will probably say more, some people will say less, but look, I would say that's maybe a conservative estimate. Let's just say it's 30. Let's say it's on the lower end of it. 30 people are in there taking cocaine. That means 3 people are going to have a violent outburst, you know, throughout that on that evening and stuff. But it's just not happening, because it's not true. He's fear-mongering. Like, he's attempting there to spin lies and basically stigmatize an entire population of people who would use a drug. Because it's just not true at all. But anyway, we'll go on. We'll continue in this. The Citizens Assembly on Drugs is examining the changes that could be made to reduce the impact of illegal drugs on society. There are more than 100 people. There are more than 100 people taking part in the current assembly, which is expected to run until October, when it votes on its recommendations. And that's pretty much the end of the article there, actually. But yeah, Dr. Chris Luke and my bad, hit the wrong button there. But Dr. Chris Luke and the misinformation leading to an article like that, then, you know, almost reinforcing the misinformation as if it's to be truth. But it's not. It's just the words and experience of one person. And I have to say, as a person who had to be in the emergency department on a number of occasions over the years, especially, you know, with the kids and stuff like that, I didn't see that. I seen people coming in and, like, drunk was probably the word to be describing them. You know, they were in a state of drunkenness. You could smell the drink off them. In fact, I didn't see anybody coming in there fitting the description of that was given by Dr. Chris Luke. But again, look, I have a limited experience up there, just being there with the kids and stuff like that in the emergency department. But drunkenness was what I saw. He talks about, like, people coming in states of psychosis and kicking out, bursting out. Yeah. All right, we just got a surprise cake sent in there. Let's party, guys. Thanks, love. So there we go, guys. This is kind of what goes down here, these lovely surprises. Blow out. Oh, make a wish first. Can't tell you what I wished for because it won't come true then. Who's calling around for a slice of that later? But yes, you know, fear-mongering anyway, misinformation, has to be called out. And to be very honest, I did call it out. I called it out there this morning over on Twitter. So Dr. Chris Luke was posting over on Twitter, and I'm going to pop up on screen there now in a couple of seconds. But he posted about cannabis spliffs, cannabis lace spliffs, And I'll put her up there in 1 second. But cannabis spliffs laced with fentanyl. That, this is what he's tweeting about there earlier. So he was putting up a post about a tweet about cannabis spliffs being laced with fentanyl, and I pointed out that he was incredibly incorrect, and I also pointed out that in his contribution at the Citizens Assembly, he mixed up ketamine with PCP, because it's actually PCP that's associated with the myth that a drug gives a person superhuman strength, and as I said here, in reality, all it really does is actually makes them aggressive with a sense of invulnerability. And in actual fact, a lot of times it doesn't make a person aggressive, but it can in fact make an aggressive person even more aggressive. So he says, the point of my contribution to the Citizens Assembly was to share my own lived experience of emergency healthcare. He says, nigh incredible strength in drug-induced psychosis, example, cocaine. So now he's pointing out cocaine here is familiar to most experienced paramedics, police, emergency healthcare professionals. So again, you see my response down there then to this, it's saying, sorry, Luke, Dr. Luke, but from a pharmacological point of view, cocaine does not increase the strength of a person. A person in a state of psychosis is just as powerful as a person on cocaine in a state of psychosis. Studies have actually shown that cocaine decreases a person's addict strength. That's because chronic cocaine use is actually associated with muscle deterioration. So a person actually who is a chronic user of cocaine most likely is going to show a display, I suppose, signs of muscle deterioration. They're not going to be fit, strong people. But what he might be mixing up here is that the stimulant nature of cocaine can make a person, like in an aggressive state, be able to sustain that for longer. That's certainly true. So a person who is in a state of psychosis without cocaine, they'll probably tire out maybe a bit sooner. Whereas a person on cocaine is just going to have that's because of the stimulant nature of the cocaine. They're going to be able to sustain it a bit longer. That's possibly what he's mixing it up with. And I would have loved to have continued in a conversation like that with Dr. Chris Luke, but unfortunately, this happened. He blocked me. He blocked me for pointing out his misinformation. I didn't even go name calling the guy or nothing like that. I just simply pointed out that you gave some misinformation there to the Citizens Assembly, and I just wanted to have a conversation around that. Didn't even need to be too much of a debate. Just acknowledge the fact that there is misinformation in what you said. Because from a pharmacological point of view, there is nothing in any of these drugs that can make a person stronger. And I'll actually pop up a video there now of Dr. Carl Hart. Dr. Carl Hart, I'm going to get her up, Doctor. So I'll give credit to Wired. So this is over on YouTube. So pop off this. Boom. So this is over there on YouTube, up on Wired, and it's Dr. Carl Hart debunking drug myths. So when we go into this, I'm just going to skip to PCP.
Mexican Americans.
We go here. PCP.
PCP gives superhuman strength. One of the ways PCP acts on the brain is that it interacts with a neurotransmitter called glutamate. Glutamate is the brain's sort of major excitatory neurotransmitter. It causes actions, and PCP blocks one of the glutamate receptors. So it prevents glutamate from acting at that receptor. When people actually give PCP to research participants in the lab, you have never seen anything remotely resembling superhuman strength or any of the other sort of effects that have been attributed to PCP, like aggression or violence. This notion that PCP causes superhuman strength comes largely from police reports and police stories, police anecdotes, where you may have heard them say that they had to shoot someone 28 times in order to bring them under control. There is absolutely no evidence of that. Can any of these illegal drugs induce violence? And the answer is emphatically yes, in people who are already violent. But in general, the drugs themselves are not producing violence. Drugs are more addictive than alcohol.
So yeah, and you know, Carl Hart hits it well there. There is nothing, there is no scientific evidence to back up what he says. Look at that awkward moment when you pause a face. But again, you know, Dr. Chris Luke gets to go up there on stage. He gets to spout this information, and you call him out for it then online, and he blocks you. So I'm not going to really waste a whole lot more time there on Dr. Chris Luke, except I do want to play one video from the Citizens Assembly. We're going to get her up on screen there in a couple of minutes. But it's Dr. Chris Luke just, again, making it, like, these prohibitionists, they make it easy for us with some of the claims that they make around this, you know. There we go, we found the video now. Give me a second and we'll have it up. But some of the claims they make are absolutely insane. Darn. Is this the one?
And that's the same with alcohol or ketamine or whatever, like the ketamine reaction with the veterinary student. That's very...
Yeah, never mind. That's not really going to work there. No, I'm not going to be able to play that video because the audio and stuff doesn't seem to be that great of doing it live. But like, he went on to talk about the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk. That was the clip I was just about to play. He talks about the story of the Incredible Hulk actually being based around the use of cocaine. Like, come on, like, come off the stage. Happy birthday, says Karina there in the hot box. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to everybody out there in the hot box. But yeah, madness. The audio was coming through okay for you. Okay, it was just silent on my side. Apologies there on that. We'll get that one fixed up. I was hearing all the YouTube clips there, but when I played that video, which I uploaded myself, it just wasn't coming through my headphones, so I just thought it was silent. So my bad. Tinkle Tink saying he was on about cannabis and vomiting too, talking about scromating, they call it. He says, what are they on about? What they're talking about there is the cannabis hypermesis syndrome. And I was actually looking at that because in the Citizens Assembly, he talks about it being a classic presentation associated with cannabis. But to be very honest, when you're looking through the literature, cannabis hypermesis syndrome, it's something that it comes around, like the earliest evidence I could find of it within the literature was going back to, I believe, 2012 or 13, when it was the term was first coined, cannabis hypermesis syndrome. Before that, there was nothing really there around it. And even then, you know, a lot of the evidence around it, there's questions as if it's associated actually with toxicity associated with neem oil. So they're talking there about neem oil being used on cannabis grows, especially those from an unregulated side of it, because I know there's certain in Canada anyway, at least neem oil actually isn't listed as a suitable insecticide on cannabis. So in places where you might be sourcing from unregulated grows, you know, home grows and stuff like that, you could potentially be getting exposed to this neem oil. And what happens if you are, say, a chronic user of cannabis, a daily user of cannabis, over time you can actually get an accumulation of the toxin within that, which displays some signs similar to that of cannabis hypermesis syndrome. Now, again, I will say that there are physicians out there that would attest to that, saying that there's other signs of toxicity associated with this neem oil that aren't present with the cannabis hypermesis syndrome, so therefore it can't be caused by that. But there's still no real cause as the why cannabis is associated with or causes cannabis hypermesis syndrome. And anyway, this whole thing about the vomiting and stuff like that as well, the thing is it's transient. It's not long lasting. And simply just stop using cannabis actually stops it as well. So like the issue there is like, doctor, I'm every time I smoke cannabis, I'm getting like I'm vomiting, and the doctor says, well, stop smoking cannabis, and it's like pretty much person's almost cured then at that point, you know. So I Dr. Bobby, or not Dr. Bobby Smith, sorry, Dr. Bobby Smith, this is not you, Dr. Chris Luke here in this case. When it comes to the cannabis hypermesis syndrome, it's just another way in which they spread fear around the use of cannabis. How many people do you know that has experienced cannabis hypermesis syndrome? Because very honest, like guys, there's over 100 people there in the hot box on Telegram, and there's a link on the old streams if you want to join that. But none of us, like all of us, are daily users of cannabis, and none of us experience cannabis hypermesis syndrome. None of us. There's 100 people. Like, so how common actually is it? I don't think it's very common at all, if it's even really a thing. You know, you have questions around it. You know, just because it's something that's only really presented itself over the last couple of years. If it was really a thing, why wasn't it there like in the 80s, 90s? Why isn't there something about it in the literature about people experiencing like repetitive vomiting that doesn't stop? Just doesn't happen, guys. Come on, to be fair, like, and how many people out there tried cannabis for the first time, and you know, you pulled a whitey or something, or a greenie, whatever you call it, and you vomited a little bit, and then the next time you try cannabis and you're grand. It's not something that you're cursed with or anything, like, you know, that every time you use cannabis you're going to get sick. No, it's just like sometimes it's a first timer type of thing. It's mad. Misinformation. I just couldn't help but like just be sitting there watching that over the weekend, and just being like really triggered by a lot of what was being said from that particular panel. And in fairness, like, one particular panelist was the worst, and that was your man Dr. Chris Luke. Even the paramedic guy, like Dr. Chris Luke, was trying to put words in his mouth at times and telling him, yeah, you're going to see this now, like, you know, again reinforcing like there's so much truth to what I'm saying here, like, you know, in the eye of the audience. It was just crazy, but like he was saying things to him like, yeah, you're going to know about these people now in time to come, because you're going to meet them. You know, these kids withdrawing from cannabis, and they're getting quite aggressive, and they're kicking out, and they're causing scenes in the A&E, and that's lies. Lies. Shit, guys, sorry, we've just spent nearly 45 minutes or so, like just ranting there now about Dr. Chris Luke and our whole Citizens Assembly. Apologies. Apologies. And yeah, so, like, somebody's actually saying there about nicotine. To be fair, nicotine, I can remember as a young fella, when like you'd sneak down to the end of the road, you know, I'd bring the dog for a walk there, man, and like 17 having a sneaky fag. But that first fag in the morning, it'd give you the spinners, like, and quite similar to like the feeling of like getting a whitey or pulling a greenie and like feeling nauseous in the stomach, and I never actually got sick from it. But yeah, you would liken it to that. And I'd imagine now, like, it's been so long since I actually smoked tobacco, that if I was to have some in a joint right now, I'd imagine if I caned the joint, if you know what that term is, like, just sucked it on, smoked it fast. I would probably get a fair spinners and probably feel nauseous as well after the tobacco. So yeah, mixing your cannabis and tobacco as well, probably, you know. Luke saying, telling you now, a whitey isn't half as bad as puking from drink. 100%, 110%. Man, there's nothing worse than being like, if you're lucky enough to make it to the toilet bowl, being like hugging a toilet bowl for dear life because the whole room is fucking spinning. And you're just like plastered there, like, and just puking away, just hoping for it all to end. Oh God, nasty. Yeah, I've been there a few times from drink. I'm not a drinker at all. I don't have it in me for drinking. I was people in the hot box when we've gone out and partied there once or twice. Probably for Amy's fundraiser night the last time. Like, wine is probably my drink of choice if I do go out and have a drink. And a glass of wine will probably last me an hour or two. if not the whole bloody night. Because I mightn't even be like up for even having the second one. I'll just sip away at the one glass and enjoy it at that. But that's simply because I just can't tolerate drink it. The puking, the hangovers, not. Like if I was to go out and have, like I used to have a cider before, I'd have a pint of cider every now and again as well if I was meet somebody at the pub, and I would only have the one. But like if I was to have a second pint of cider, I would be starting feeling drunk, and an hour later I would probably have a mini hangover. The stuff is poison, but do I think we should ban it? No, I definitely don't. I think there's a market there for it. There's people who enjoy alcohol. And I don't think they should be judged for it. Just because it's not for me doesn't mean it's not for somebody else. But likewise, just because you can't handle your cannabis and you think your heart is going to stop or it's beating too fast or something like that, and you end up calling the ambulance like that shouldn't be a reason to not allow people like myself who don't experience in that way. And that is the many people like myself who don't experience in that way. They use these very like minute, just say like low occurring, that's it, low occurring situations as reasons like against it. But they're low occurring reasons, and to be fair, a lot of it occurs under the model of prohibition, which worsens it. There was a clip there of that paramedic actually, and I'm going to put a few videos together over time, hopefully, if I can get some time there this evening to do a bit of editing. But there was a clip there of the paramedic talking about one of the problems they face within the A&E, and to go back to the overwhelmed emergency headline, that headline there, they're overwhelmed, and then while they're overwhelmed, they're trying to help the person, and while they're trying to help them, they can't get all the information, because sometimes the person doesn't even know what they've taken themselves. And the paramedic talks about that. Person might come in and they think they've taken one substance, but they'll get tested and it might show it to be actually something totally different. And he talks about some occasions they actually never find out what the person has taken. And that's a problem, because if you don't know what the person has after been taken, then you don't know how to actually give them proper treatment. And therefore, so again, it's another argument for like legalization and regulation, because if a person comes in and they know what they're after being taken, they might have a packet there, they might have a receipt there of some sort, there's just some sort of traceability. If they come in and say, look, I was after taking some ecstasy or some cocaine or whatever the case might be, and it came from a regulated source, well, then they're going to know that it actually was ecstasy or cocaine, and then therefore they can actually proceed accordingly. But if they're working in the dark, then they might as well be closing their eyes and trying to fucking dart at a dartboard to decide what they're going to do next for that person, because you have to treat each case individually, and no drugs are the same. No overdose is the same either. If a person's overdosing on opiates versus overdosing on cocaine, I don't believe Narcan is going to work for a cocaine overdose. And likewise with alcohol and stuff. But yeah, sorry. Apologies for that big long rant about the Citizens' Assembly. But as I said, I do intend to get some videos out around it, because there is a lot of stuff out there that needs to be taken apart. As I said, there's a lot of contributions being given by certain people, and they're disingenuous. I don't know, are they knowingly misinforming people, or are they unknowingly misinforming people? You see, I'm not going to make that accusation. All I will say is that the fact stands, there is misinformation being spread, and that individual has been called out, and I hope they answer for it. I hope there's more done about this, because it was bad. Like, just not to spend too much more time in it. But Dr. Chris Uga, at the end of his panel's discussion, he interrupted as the panel was closing, and he's like, and I have to add, cannabis-laced spliffs with fentanyl killed 80,000 youngsters in the United States this year. This year alone, youngsters, 80,000. There's nothing backing that up. There's no 80,000 people after dying because of cannabis spliffs laced with fentanyl. And that's what he said. That's exactly what he said on that. Now, what he probably meant was that there was evidence of cannabis laced spliff found. One bit of evidence I can find online. Only one bit of evidence. And even in that bit of evidence, the person doing the testing actually attributed it to a dealer using the same scales to weigh up the cannabis that he had just used to weigh up some fentanyl or supposed heroin containing fentanyl or other drug containing fentanyl. And then that cannabis was put in that weighing scale, picked up some specks of it, but no way was the cannabis actually spiked with fentanyl purposefully. It was just a thing that happened in poor quality control because of an unregulated market again, you know. But he implied that 80,000 people have died because of cannabis-laced spliffs in the United States. Like, but what, again, as I said, what he probably meant was that there's been a lot of deaths because of fentanyl in the United States over the last year. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was 80,000 people died in the last 12 months because of fentanyl, but not cannabis spliffs laced with fentanyl. And again, when you talk about cannabis in the United States, a lot of people are going to think about like it being legalized over there, but it's still federally illegal. Certain states allow and tolerate the sale of it at a state level, but it's still federally illegal, which poses its own problems. But that's what people are going to be thinking. Oh, in a legal market, people are still spiking cannabis with fentanyl. Oh my God, maybe legalization is a bad thing. Like I couldn't help but think that that's what he was doing. That's what he was implying when talking about America. You need to be very specific. You know, he was speaking very broadly about something, and it was a very strong statement. He said like 80,000 young people died. The guy needs to be called out for this shit. Like, hence almost an hour now of me giving out here about him. Sean is shocked. That says, never heard of it. Nicotine makes me sick, though. It ruined so many J's with the stuff. Yeah, which triggered my little conversation about nicotine there, that comment a second ago. Pod says that he only gets sick when he doesn't have any, and that's a fact. Yeah, I know there's people out there who would feel the same as well. That cannabis certainly helps them feel better. There's people out there suffering, you know, the ill effects of chemotherapy, and the available nausea medication isn't doing anything for them, or maybe they just prefer cannabis over those medications, and yeah, it's doing a wonder for their nausea too. But just because it will treat one person's nausea, it does say that there is a mechanism. Again, just to look at from the scientific point of view, and to not be too biased on this. Like, if there's a mechanism for cannabis to actually help prevent nausea, you could also imply then that by the same reasoning that there could be a mechanism there for it to cause nauseousness. And we know it does. We know it does. Hence, like the whiteys, greenies, we acknowledge that. But the cannabis hypermesis thing, I believe, is just adding arms and legs to that. I believe, anyhow. I do believe. Dai says the other old fella saying people call it cannabis because it is a cuddly sounding name. What? No, we call it cannabis because it's scientifically assigned name by Carlos Linnaeus. Back in a time when there was no such thing as really stigma around the use of cannabis. Cannabis was a medicinal plant that was used for millennia by people, and it was revered for its medical qualities. But yeah, we call it cannabis because it's cuddly. I don't call it marijuana, because I do believe that the term marijuana was used at a time to try to manipulate people's thinking around it, to try to associate it with foreign people. At a certain time in America, that would have been a beneficial thing to do if you wanted to make something illegal. But I'm not against it. If people want to use marijuana, by all means. But for me, I certainly call it cannabis, out of respect, more importantly, to the plant, and to pay homage to that, because it's like marijuana is a slang term also, outside of it being a racially motivated term at times. It's certainly a slang term as well, and a powerful plant like cannabis deserves to be called by its full and proper name, cannabis. But it is certainly more cuddly than marijuana or weed or you know, some of the other things that they might try to call it. I don't mind Mary Jane though. Mary Jane sounds, you know, it's all right. Mr. Finian says, I had the good old days of talking to Jesus on the porcelain phone. Yeah. B. Mooney says, yeah, drinking is incredibly overrated, to be fair. It has its place, you know, don't get me wrong. It certainly has its place. There's a younger generation there. There's people out there who are, would you say, socially awkward, and drink acts as a nice social lubricant for certain people. It allows them just to let their guard down, be a bit looser, have a bit more fun. But again, it's not for everybody. People can abuse it and overuse it. So education, above all else, is the most important around us. And that's what we need around other drugs as well. Is it not the same? But yeah, because I'm not going to shit on any other drug users really. Like, if you've whatever your drug choice is, by all means, go for it. Like, my choice is my choice, and I make it for my reasons. And nobody should judge me for that. So why should I judge them? John Phantom saying 5% of the annual world deaths are alcohol related. And some people would use that as a reason then, like, as the why should we add another drug to the mix? You know, alcohol's already killing so many people. But like, alcohol is associated with those deaths. It's not actually causative of those deaths. You know, drinking over years can in turn like lead to liver cirrhosis. Is that the term? Yeah, liver cirrhosis, among other things. But like, it's not actually alcohol that's doing that. That's like because of lifestyle choices, which is more central to that figure of 5% then of annual world deaths being associated with alcohol. It's because people would choose to maybe overdrink and therefore lead to things like liver cirrhosis. I think there's even things like obesity and stuff like that are associated with like alcohol, I believe. So, you know, it's a bit of an overinflated number as well, you know, just to say. But as I said, it's used as a reason not to legalize other drugs. But the thing is, these drugs are there anyway, and they're actually more dangerous illegal, as alcohol prohibition showing us. If you were to have the same number of people drinking that we have today under alcohol prohibition, that percentage would be a lot higher, because the amount of people who were drinking back then, it was a lot less, but it wasn't less because of prohibition. It was just less because we don't have the culture today then that we do today around drinking. So, you know, apples and oranges, they're comparing the two different times. But to be fair, we would have a lot more deaths if alcohol was still prohibited and we had the numbers drinking today that we did, that we do now. Yeah. Sean also saying that overdose from alcohol equals death, overdose from cannabis equals sleep. Case closed. Yeah, like the sleep that you can wake up from, you know, our empty cupboards is also a result of a cannabis intoxication, I suppose, really, that more than overdose. Cannabis intoxication is scary. Like, you know, I've once eaten an entire packet of chocolate digestives, guys. Would you believe that? Shock and horror. We're such evil people. Sorry, now I can smell chocolate coming up from under the cupboard. Yummy. Rasher saying, if you have any clips under 60 seconds, send them on or post them on Insta. Yeah, nice one. So guys, that's a shout out there from Rashers. He says if you have any 60-second clips, send them on over on Insta. And I believe if you want to send them over on Insta, is it Rasher over on Insta? Also, if it's not Rashers, you'll be able to get them to the Cannabis Activist Alliance. They have an Instagram page over there. So if you have any clips that you think are worth sharing, if there's people out there who are into clip making and stuff, they want to make clips from the Citizens Assembly, then by all means, definitely send them on to the Cannabis Activist Alliance, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Rasher there as well. Wherever you find Rasher, you might add it in the hotbox. Sorry, I'm a bit behind there on the hotbox, guys. Shauna Shakta says new Twitter is good. You can add notes for public and counter bullshit. The media are mad about it. Yeah, that's right. Actually, the community notes is quite good. Hopefully they'll start calling out some of the misinformation being spread there by the likes of Bobby and Chris. Yeah, Shice on here, absolutely no logical reason to lace cannabis. How would you even like get the dosing right across the cannabis flower without killing people? Like your real or cannabis spliffs absolutely blasted with fentanyl. But no, there was that sample was found, and it was with a group of people who were actually known to be known opiate users as well. 30 of the 39 opiate fentanyl deaths in a certain state there where this cannabis one was found were actually known opiate users. That's not to say that the other 9 weren't opiate users. They just weren't known opiate users. But there was only one joint found with a bit of fentanyl on it, and as I said, the investigators in that situation actually associated with cross-contamination from weighing scales and not a drug dealer spiking it, just like people aren't giving out cannabis jellies at Halloween time. You know? John Phantom here says, no, you can't use fentanyl at temperatures cannabis is used at. Edibles are a different story. The fentanyl deaths here in America are from the pills. So there you go, guys. This is coming from somebody who's actually over there as well in America. Keep in mind, Dr. Chris Luke is here in Ireland, so he's just trying to bring over some stories that he's seen on, again, media outlets that are going to be putting out stories that suit his agenda. Because, again, when you actually read into one of the sources that Chris Luke shared there earlier, it was a very biased website when it comes to drug use. So that coming in from John Phantom, they're saying that most of the deaths are actually associated with pills, if not all of the deaths in America, and also saying that fentanyl can't be used at the temperatures the cannabis is used at. That's actually a good observation as well, that fentanyl is inside in a cannabis joint, and you burn it, then yeah, you're going to actually combust the fentanyl. So can you inhale it then? They would say that maybe the fentanyl itself, just if you fly back your throat maybe, but yeah, that was the Connecticut, that was the state, Luke pointing it out here. He says the finding in Connecticut resulted in the state recommending to avoid black market cannabis. So, and that was another finding actually of that article. They said, guys, actually be very careful out there getting cannabis from the black market, because there's people actually selling cannabis in the black market who sell, say, heroin or cocaine that could potentially be laced with fentanyl. So be wide. Unfortunately, we don't have the same situation here. Well, fortunately, fentanyl isn't an issue here in Ireland either, and long may that last. That's not saying that fentanyl isn't here, but it's not as prolific as a problem as it's currently in the US. But I believe it's more of a problem in the US because of like contamination with fentanyl. Black market drugs containing fentanyl in very dangerous quantities as well, quite often not. John Phantom adding that he's had 2 close people to me die because of fentanyl. My cousin just died 3 days ago of it. Fentanyl laced cocaine. He was a drinker. So there you go. Like this person wasn't even an opiate user, and unfortunately got cocaine that was laced with fentanyl, leading to that person's death. They might even attribute that death then to cocaine use or something like that, and argue, well, we shouldn't be legalizing cocaine because, and say a number, and that person is in there as a statistic then as a cocaine user who died of an overdose using cocaine, but it was fentanyl that killed them. Again, this is an argument that we make for legalization, because this John Phantom's cousin, and condolences, John Phantom, I'm sorry for your loss, and of your friends as well, but his cousin could be alive today if there was a pharmacy that he was able to go in as a drinker and a cocaine user and to be able to kind of get some pharmaceutically approved, produced, whatever, quality assured cocaine that's not containing fentanyl, because that's the biggest problem for people out there right now, is products contaminated with fentanyl, because it's not regulated and people are dying as a result. And then we've people like Chris Luke over here then arguing against legalization as a reason, using that as a reason against legalization, when in actual fact it's completely the opposite. It's a reason for legalization. More people would be alive today if we had a regulated drugs market. Like, the fact stands that prohibition has actually killed more people than drugs, because to be fair, a lot of the deaths associated with drug use are situations that could have been avoided if we didn't have prohibition. Quality control would have saved a lot of people. Proper education would have saved even more then, and therefore the actual amount of deaths associated with drug use would be quite less. Might have been just accidental overdoses where people were just accidentally took too much. But to be sure, legalization, regulation, education are going to save lives. Prohibition kills people. Sorry again, anyway, to hear about that. Thanks for sharing, John Phantom, as well. Appreciate that. Shyson here saying Reefer Madness era name marijuana. Yeah, well, it was a popular name apparently within the Mexican community and that southern community. But it was more a name. It was a slang name for a Mexican tobacco plant, more than it was for cannabis. Apparently, anyway. There's others out there that say it comes from the use of the name Maria and Jane, or something like that. So for brassers, and then that leads to Mary Jane cannabis. I'm not too sure anyway where the origins of it is. But it was certainly used in a racially motivated attack on the plant during that era of cannabis prohibition, or the enactment of cannabis prohibition in America. B. Mooney here saying, yeah, they tried to link it to the lazy Mexicans. Meanwhile, a new study is showing cannabis as an effective treatment for chronic fatigue. Oh, is there anything this plant can't do? Like, the thing is so amazing. You often get criticized, because people will say, you think the plant is a panacea, it's a cure for everything. But to be fair, the more that they study it, the more they learn about it, the more we kind of see that it actually helps us with an awful lot. It's not that it's a cure for everything, it's just that it can be an effective treatment for symptoms of many conditions. But I'm certainly not saying that cannabis is a cure. John Burke says, what was the result of the meeting you're talking about? Well, I suppose there's no real result there yet, but the outlook on it, certainly at the moment, from the citizens' perspective, is that the government need to be doing more. There needs to be a radical change in terms of policy, in terms of how we view people who use drugs. So it seems I'm very optimistic as to what the outcome is going to be. I think there's going to be a very positive outcome for it, in terms of positive for policy reformers out there like ourselves, as many of us want to see a change of the laws, decriminalisation, legalisation. I think very much that's the direction that we're heading with the Citizens' Assembly, is that there's 100% going to be a recommendation of decriminalisation on the horizon from it. And I would imagine that there's going to be a bit in there as well around regulation of the supply of these drugs. I would have to imagine that. So I'm very optimistic that there's going to be a very good outcome of it. Obviously, we have to wait now until October to find out about it. But until then, we'll continue to cover the coverage of it. And we'll be paying very close attention as to what's happening in it. If that optimism level changes at any point, if it decreases, I'll certainly let you know. If it increases any bit more, I'll certainly let you know as well. Chris Luke, he did. He's saying Chris Luke made a great argument for regulation of cannabis. To be fair, he made great arguments for regulation of any drug that he talked about. A lot of his arguments, to be fair, were arguments for the regulation of drugs, although he kind of framed them in a way in which you would think that he's arguing against legalization. But if you actually were to break down what he says and to delve into it more, if you were able to question him more on it, you will quickly find out that, what he said was actually an argument for legalization and regulation. Because again, as we talked about the paramedic afterwards, he talked about not knowing what people were after being taken, and quite often or not, the people didn't even know what they were after being taken themselves. That's just one problem that would be solved there. So yeah. Who else is in the hot box? Dahi Golan says the host was poor enough. It's a tough gig, but she hadn't a clue really. Yeah, again, I believe she was an RT journalist or an RT presenter of some kind. I thought she was biased. I think from her presentation, from her phrasing of questions towards people, I thought there was a bit of stigma around the language that she was using, and I think she framed kind of questions up, like she pitched them up in a negative way, in order for the person to kind of continue on in a negative way. Quite often or not, the person didn't. I think some of the paramedics kind of didn't really hit that ball out of the park for her. But I think she kind of did come across as a person who has She probably has no problem with a glass of wine at the evening. She probably had one when she finished that Sunday. But when it comes to other drugs, I think she kind of has a bit of a chip on her shoulder around the use of other drugs. And I think that came through in her demeanour that day. Not saying anything overly bad about her, but just for me, I kind of would pick up on these things a little bit. But I'm very picky, I suppose. The roving reporter is a lemon tree. Says many girls get raped while drunk and don't even know. Many are assaulted at festivals when drunk and unconscious in their tents. Yep, that certainly does happen. All right, drink. Do you know? But we won't really blame drink about that. You know, we'll put out ads about drink sensibly. Do you know? No, nobody's going to call for a drink to be illegal because some girl was blacked out drunk at a festival. But like, if some guy's taking mushrooms and jumps out the third story window because he thought he was Superman, then all of a sudden there's an outcry. We need to make these things illegal. You see the situation there, and I would argue, you know, that as bad as jumping out a window is, I would imagine that because I believe that person died. I would imagine getting raped in your tent and having to live with that is probably worse. You know, I'd imagine some of these girls who do fall prey to these fucking predators out there while in a drunken state, I'd imagine some of them do and eventually end up actually taking their own lives because of it as a result of the the trauma of that situation. But again, you know, you're not going to hear people calling for drink to be illegal because that would only make matters worse, would it not? Like really, like we're never going to have a drug-free society. Never in a time in human history has there been a drug-free society, and I don't believe never. Is there going to be a time in our future? Is there going to be a drug-free society? Unless we allow the government to implant chips into all of us, which gives us electric shocks every time we think about breaking a law or something. Who knows what the future holds? But that's the only way they're really realistically going to be able to override this human, this completely human behavior of drug taking, of altering our one's consciousness through the taking of a substance. You know, it's never going to be taken out of us unless, as I said, you put a chip in us that fucking gives us a shock or something every time you think about taking a drug. Would you allow them to do that, your kids, you know? Well, you might not have a choice. Dystopian future, guys. Somebody make a movie there about that. Kids hacking into it then, you know, in school being able to hack into it so that they can have an old smoke at 420. It's called the 420 hack. Rashers, guys, Insta there for Rashers, just an update on that there earlier. At Rasher710 on Insta, RCA Ireland. So guys, that's Rasher710 on Insta for anybody out there who's into making some clips from the Citizens Assembly, or of anything else either, if you feel like it's relevant to the Cannabis Activist Alliance. Rasher there is managing that at the moment, and would appreciate any help that comes his way because, as he says, if anyone can send on any edits or clips from the Citizens Assembly, I can caption them or use own captions and get them up there on Reels and stuff. Reels get a lot of traction for those clips under 60 seconds. So hopefully that helps there, Asher. Shy Son says Fent itself as a raw powder, you'd need a micro milligrams, I'd say. Yeah, it's tiny. Next to heroin, like I believe it's like 100 times less you need for a fatal overdose. Like 100 times less. So think about how much heroin you would need to overdose on, and then it's 100 times smaller than that. Shauna Shock the Heretic hit into a conspiracy as well around the whole fentanyl thing. Sean's saying here the fentanyl is China's revenge for the opium wars. I kind of believe certainly a bit of that. Because like when you look at it from the American point of view, a lot of the fentanyl that's getting into America is coming in via Mexico, south of the border. And then when the investigations were done in Mexico, they're finding that a lot of the precursors for fentanyl making are coming into the country via China. And there's very little being done on the Chinese side about it to circumvent the supply of the Mexican market with these precursors. And some would argue maybe that there's actually even support from the Chinese side to get these precursors to Mexico, knowing that they're going to flood into the American market, causing this crisis then within America that they have to deal with within their drug using population, especially the illicit drug using population. Those using regulated drugs like alcohol and tobacco, they're safe from fentanyl for the time being. The Chinese haven't found a way to invade that one. But certainly, yeah, Americans are potentially under attack now from Chinese via Mexican drug markets, drug supply lines. I like, as I said, it's a bit of a conspiracy because there's not a whole lot of evidence out there for it. But there certainly is evidence there to what I talked about, that there is a trail of the precursors from China to Mexico. Mexico then makes the fentanyl and ships it up into America. Is the Chinese Communist Party behind it? I don't know. But like, is there anything really going on in China that these guys don't know about? Come on, like, in fairness, like. But we won't we won't get too deep into that, will we? Luke says it makes zero sense to use anyway. Wouldn't even add weight. Yeah, I wouldn't add weight. No, there's no sense to add fentanyl to cannabis at all. Like, the effects are totally different. Like, you wouldn't want to be experiencing, like, say, even if it was like smoking opium, you wouldn't want to be having like that kind of a high from smoking cannabis, like, you know. You wouldn't. Like, if you want to be getting a high of smoking opium, you'd smoke opium. Like, you wouldn't be trying to smoke cannabis to be getting that high. Because it's completely dissociative from what I understand. Like, you'd need a pillow and a nice place, a safe place to lie down. At least that's my picture of the Chinese opium dens anyway. People just chilling out, smoking some opium. Pads for 420 says won't be long till there's batches of coke coming into here with it. Yeah, it's only a matter of time, I'd imagine, you know, but maybe we're not a target of the Chinese. Luke says they just spray crap with sand or something. That was the worst, man. That was the worst. The gritty weed. Oh no, sorry. Actually, no, that wasn't the worst, because at least with the gritty weed, with the sandy weed, like, you could kind of get ways around it. Like, if you were to use a volcano, like, if you vaporize some sand, it's like there's no real harm done as such. So you could kind of get around it like that. But the worst actually was the fiberglass stuff that they were spraying the cannabis with to make it look, because the fiberglass, when they sprayed it on the cannabis, it would actually stick to it. It would actually stick to the cannabis, make it more sparkly and all of that. And when you smoke fiberglass, guys, like, just think about the nasty, nasty chemicals that were being produced by combustion of fiberglass. Not to mention fiberglass flying back your throat from the bloody roach of the joint because it's not properly filtered. But imagine this, the combustion and the stuff that you're producing. Nasty. But yeah, geez, sand, fiberglass. Thank God that's not an issue today, really, here. Thank God. Anybody out there ever get fiberglass weed recently? Like, when was the last time, guys? You know, let me know in the comments there. That's let me know what you think. When was the last time you came across fiberglass weed? I'll start. I believe it was probably around 2009, maybe 2009, 2010. No, apologies. Actually, the last time I got fiberglass weed was when I watched the Rick Simpson documentary. Kelsey would have been about 3. She's 15 now, 12 years ago. 2011. There we go. Boom. 2011 was the last time I got fiberglass weed. When was the last time you got yours? Oh, if you're a lucky one out there who never got it, let me know too. Say never. And is it never then? If you're one of the never people, let me know, like, if you're 20 or younger, because then it'll be like, yeah, well, 11 years ago you weren't really old enough to, well, 3 years ago you really weren't old enough to be smoking weed if you're 20, 2 years ago. You know what I mean? Oh yes, Rasher, getting me to another very important bit of news, because the stream is just going on and we're just chatting now. But the Citizens Assembly, guys, you can make your own submissions now at the moment over on the Citizens Assembly. Nice one, Rasher, there, for reminding me of getting that important message out to people, as we have a bit of an audience now, guys. But over on the Citizens Assembly on Drug Use, excuse me. Yes, so we'll quickly do a little tutorial. We might maybe be able to mash this up later, clip it out of this. The Citizens Assembly Public Submissions Portal. So if you go over onto the Citizens Assembly website, so it's citizensassembly.ie, then you'll be able to go up here to Assembly on Drug Use, and there's a drop-down menu then, and the second item in that menu is Submissions. You click into this then, and then it brings you to this page around the submissions. It gives you some information and guidance there around your submission as to what they're looking for in your submission. Your submission can be typed up, or it can also actually be a video. Keep in mind the video is of a certain size. So I believe it has to be under 5 minutes, and under a certain memory size as well. I can't remember. I think Stephen Garland was telling me there last night what the number was. I don't know, was it 50 megabytes or something? It's quite small, so you need to keep that in mind also if you are making a video submission. If you're recording on your phone, it can be quite large. You'll have to dial down the quality of the video in order to make a video submission. But you click on this button anyway here, start your submission. Brings you then to the opening page. Again, just gives you some information here about the submissions. So an important bit of information is that your name can be associated with your submission, or you can actually opt out of your name being associated with the submission. And what this means is that all these submissions are going to be displayed for, I believe, just the citizens, but I'm not too sure if everybody is going to be able to see all of the submissions that are made to the Assembly. So if it's everybody, or if it's just the citizens, what this is about actually is just your name is going to be associated with the submission if you choose to do so. You can also make it an anonymous submission as well, with your name not being associated with it. Then you go down through it. So you'll be taken to the first one. Are you making a personal or a submission, or a submission on behalf of a group or an organization? Then you give your name, your surname, and as I said, these you can opt out and be anonymous, but you still have to give them. You give an email address also. Then also the fifth one then is, do you have a pre-prepared submission that you would like to upload here, or would you like to fill in the online form? So if you've typed something up and you have it saved in a Word document or something like that, then you can upload it here. Otherwise, you can go in and fill an online form. So I'll just click the online form here for yourselves to see that part. And it says, we are looking for your opinion informed by evidence and or by your own experience on any issue that falls under the terms of reference. So it's very specific here as well about the terms of reference, guys. If you are making submissions, just make sure that you are at least ticking like one or two of the boxes of the terms of reference, as I believe there's going to be people going through these and determining, you know, if they are. So far, they announced there at the weekend they've received 350 submissions, which, according to Paul Reed, is an overwhelming response, and it's only just opened. This is going to remain open until the 30th of June. So there's like another 5 or 6 weeks left there of a window for submissions to be made. So there's probably going to be a lot more submissions made. So they're going to probably have to go through those to make sure that they're being meeting the terms of reference, which, you know, a couple of people within the government were trying to widen the terms of reference there before this began, unsuccessfully so. AKA Holly Cairns, gotta give credit there to Holly Cairns of the what party is she at? The Social Democrats Party, I believe. Social Democrats, is that them? I believe that's them. But Holly Cairns, West Cork TD, she tried to widen the terms of reference to include those who actually use drugs and don't fall under that kind of drug abuse, problematic drug use description. She tried to widen it for those reasons, but was unsuccessful in doing so. So anyway, they follow up then, and they give you some guiding points as to what the actual terms of reference are. So the following questions derived from terms of reference are intended to assist but not limit you in making your submission. So if you want to read up the terms of reference there, you can just click on this little link here as well. It'll open her up on another page. This is the terms of reference. But they're giving you these questions here to help guide you. So let's just read what the questions are. What are the harmful impacts of drug use on individuals, families, communities, and wider society? So when you talk about drug use, like you can talk about drug use, that the drug use, and then you can follow it on that drug use can lead to criminalization, which can befall harm upon an individual, which can lead the person to spiral into more problematic drug use, therefore leading to more problems with the family, therefore leading to the person falling out, say, within their community, and therefore wider society then be negatively impacted, because we've got one less productive individual. And why was this? Was it because of drug use, or was it because the person was criminalized for the drug use? Because in that situation, I said that the person used drugs and they were criminalized for it, and then they spiraled into problematic drug use, which quite often are not going to happen. It was quite close to happening for me. You get criminalized by the cops, you kind of get a dislike for them, and you're like, yeah, fuck the police, fuck the cops, and you get a dislike for it. But thankfully, it didn't spiral into problematic drug use. But you can, because there shouldn't be fuck the cops. They shouldn't be out criminalizing you. If I did have a problem with my drug use, and the cop witnessed that, then he should have been there to help me, and I shouldn't have disliked him for it. But I didn't have a problem with my drug use, and he wasn't there to help me. He was there to help himself, to better his own position. So that's one way in which you can kind of tick that box there on that question, and tying it back into the terms of reference in terms of the harmful impacts of drug use. Drug use leads to criminalization. And on you go. I give your example. What could the state do to significantly reduce the harmful impacts of illicit drugs on individuals, families, communities, and wider society? Well, you could talk there about the regulation of drugs, that the state could actually do a lot to regulate the supply of these drugs, as they've been unsuccessful to date in preventing the supply of these drugs. And therefore more harm is befalling the individuals, as we just talked about there for the last little bit about fentanyl, for example. Contaminated drug supplies pose a significant risk to the individuals, and if that individual dies, the impact on the family, leading to maybe more people falling into drug addiction within the family if they're really devastated because of the passing, upsetting the community because more people in active addiction because of all of this. And therefore wider society, because that community now is less enabled to engage with itself, because people within it are dysfunctional. Why are they dysfunctional? Because we've got such a fucking backwards drug policy. Instead of actually trying to help people who need help, we're insistent in helping anybody we catch with drugs. Like we should be only insistent in helping those who actually need help or want help. And not implying that anybody who uses drugs is actually in need of help, because that's what we're currently doing. You're criminalizing a person. Why are you criminalizing them? Well, we don't really want them to use drugs. We want to deter the drug use. So you're trying to help people through punishing them. You want to help them by punishing them in a way in which actually takes away their ability to get a job, reduces their ability to get a job, reduces their ability to even go on a fucking family holiday to the United States if they wanted to. Do you want to go over and see Goofy at fucking Disneyland? No, I can only go to Euro Disney. or that person I was talking about. I wasn't talking about myself. But yes, I was. What works and what doesn't work in terms of the current legislation, policy, and service delivery. There's a lot can be said there about what doesn't work. Like what does work is the groups that are out there working to help people, the groups that actually see the people for the people they are. They meet people where they're at. I think that was a big part of the conversation at the Citizens Assembly over the weekend, is about meeting people at where they're at. That you can't judge them. You can't be like, hell, you need to be up here before I can help you. When the person is fucking all the way down there at the rock bottom. You can't be doing that. You have to meet people at where they're at. And if that person is in active addiction and they're an active drug user, you have to meet them there. And I think the best way you can help meet people there is by regulating a drug supply and actually being able to identify those people who are in need of that kind of intervention and that kind of help. But yeah, that's what works right now, meeting people at where they're at, listening to people, not just forcing your fucking bigoted views and your moralistic and ideological policies upon us, because that's what doesn't work. What should be done to reduce supply, demand, and harm? What should be done? I think what should be done is better education around the use of a drug, but policy, we look at tobacco and alcohol. These are certainly drugs that we've been able to reduce the use of over the last couple of years, but we didn't do it by criminalizing people or stigmatizing people. We just talked about the ill effects of it, and just identified the two people around the addiction, say for tobacco mainly. We've far less people smoking tobacco today than what we did before. And that was because of education around the use of it, and because, you know, it's not really that great of a drug, to be very honest, too. Like, you know, to be very honest, it was kind of just a thing that was marketed at people through magazines and TV and commercials and stuff like that as being a cool thing to do, you know. A very prominent marketing campaign of the tobacco industry would have been when they got the woman as part of the women's rights movement over in the US to smoke cigarettes, and they called them like I think they called them like sticks of freedom or something like that. That it was a very empowering thing for a woman to do, to smoke cigarettes, and then they got a lot of women smoking cigarettes. But it was all marketing. Like it's all about like perception, perceived as being a cool thing to do. In reality, like, tobacco as a drug, it's kind of a bit of an icky one. It's like, it's nothing fun about it. Like, you smoke a fucking cigarette and it's like, yeah, you're done. It's like, and man, when we want to talk about tobacco smokers, like, I know people who used the laughing gas were getting an awful time there recently in the UK in terms of like littering and stuff, man. But like, if we want to talk about littering, there's nobody worse than tobacco smokers. Like, and I'm sorry if you're out there and you're a tobacco smoker and you're one of those people who will just like, boom, tobacco butt on the floor. Like, I just can't fathom it. Like, I just don't like it at all. Like, I'm a bit of a hypocrite in a sense that I'll do it from time to time with like a roach end, but I justify it in my own head because it's raw. It's like it's a hemp roach. It's a hemp skin. It's biodegradable. But like the end of cigarettes, it's fucking synthetic material. That shit like lasts forever, and it's loaded up then with like this nicotine and shit, like, and it leaches out into the rivers and waterways and stuff. Like, it's nasty. So if you really wanted to talk about like drug users who've got some like poor etiquette around their drug use, we need to talk about tobacco smokers, because those fuckers are terrible. But yeah, in terms of supply and demand, education, that's kind of where I was going with that. Went off on a few tangents there, maybe. But education has been successful in reducing the use of a drug like, say, tobacco. It's also reduced or increased the age at which a person actually first uses drugs. At least there's less young people now today using alcohol than there was before. According to some of the most recent studies, again, that to me shows that education is proving beneficial there in those instances. So education is central to all of this. That should be the only thing that should be done, really, like, is education. Otherwise, legalize, regulate. Like, that's the only thing. Other things that should be done. What should be done to increase resilience, health, and well-being? Stop criminalizing people. Any other comments? Prohibition kills. It doesn't work. You know, but like that's just an example as to how you could answer it. Now, I was just kind of having a bit of fun with that and just showing as well as to how to tie in some of these arguments around criminalization into the terms of reference, because I would be worried that some people's submissions, if they only solely focus in on, say, the harms of criminalization and don't leave it there and not associate the harms of criminalization with the harms of drug use, because that is an example of a harm of drug use, is being criminalized. So you have to tie it into terms of reference, is kind of what I'm getting at there. I think that's very important for anybody making a submission. Look at the terms of reference for your submission and just make sure that you're ticking some of those boxes there so that they don't exclude your submission. As I do think they will exclude some, given the level of submissions that have already come in just the first 2 weeks alone. So yeah. Boom. So yeah, I think that's all of the, please include your response below. So this is your area to your response. What else is there? To assist the public who may be reading the submission at a later date, please provide an overview of your submission. Okay, so your submission can be there's no limited characters here in your submission. But there is then on this little overview of your submission. So there's a 100-word overview you have to also give of your overall submission. There's a visual here. There's a text. Okay, yeah, just two different submission boxes there. And that's it. And you hit that finish box, and I believe you're all done then at that point. So hope that helps everybody out there. The Rough and Weed Reporter says, fucking weed chunkies. Shy Son says, hopefully they ban tobacco. It'll help me quit. As long as I buy Rizlas and Centra, I'll still be happy. Shy Son, you don't need them to ban it to quit, man. You got the power within you, man. If you really want to quit and if you set your mind to it, man, you can overcome pretty much any addiction, man. It's mind over matter a lot of the times. Sometimes we're stronger than others, and we shouldn't judge ourselves based on our weak times. Focus on when we're strong, and that'll help you, rise back to those heights when you're feeling low. But yeah, man, you got it within you. If you want to quit those tobacco, you don't need them to ban it. Don't need to punish those other people who don't want to quit. We don't want to be like fucking New Zealand. Like, see what New Zealand are doing? Like, if you're born of a certain year, you can't buy tobacco anymore, and they're going to phase it out. So, like, as people age, there'll be less and less people able to buy tobacco in New Zealand. That's mad. Like, I can see him pulling a U-turn maybe on that in a certain point in time, maybe. I can't see him like being able to continue that. Tinkle Tink says, giving up nicotine is supposed to be one of the hardest drugs to give up. Very short half-life. Yeah, it's certainly a very hard one to give up. But I think for a lot of people, it's a lot harder because, like, you say you work and you go drinking, say, for example, if you're in that situation. Quite often or not, when you're at work, people are used to going out for fag breaks. If you're a smoker, and all of a sudden you go into work and you don't have a fag break anymore because you're not going out for a fag, and you're working away, like, and your friends are going out for the fag break, and you're like, fuck it, I go for one. And I'm like, and the same as drinking, like, as a lot of the times, some of the best chats kind of happen out in the smoking room because it's probably a bit quieter out there. The music's not as loud, and therefore it's a bit tougher there as well. But yeah, certainly in terms of a pharmacological point of view and the half-life and stuff, it is one that keeps you coming back for more. And it's a hard one to be able to kick then once it does get its hooks into you. But it's mind over matter, it really is. I know there's a physiological side of it as well because of the chemical nature of it. But it's not you can't overcome, man. It's mind over matter. You can get through it. Just gotta have faith. Tinkle Tink says, giving up nicotine is... oh yeah, we read that there. John Finnegan says, but tobacco enhances the effects of cannabis. There is definitely certainly truth to that. Nicotine itself, within tobacco, it is, what do they call it, a nootropic. So it is neurally stimulating. So there is benefits there to tobacco use and stuff like that. And there is supposedly a synergy there with some of the compounds within cannabis as well, because of that. But overall, pure is best. Sorry, John. Pure is best. Like, I don't know. John Finnegan says, leave my tobacco alone, American, you fucking pod stoner, you. And Sean here pointing out actually as well that, yeah, they're cracking down on vapes in Australia, and that's coming here next. Yes, I noticed actually traveling through the airport recently that the tobacco section is now hidden away, that you have to go through this little section and you can only go through there if you're over 18. And there was like a guy working from the store there standing to make sure no kids went in there. That was interesting to be able to see that. So like they're completely removing it now from the view of the public, i.e. kids, I suppose, is the intended target there to be removing it from. But yeah, I thought that was interesting to see that. That was when I was coming back there from the UK recently, travelling through London Heathrow. So when you go to the all the drinks are there, all the drinks are out, but when you go to that part of it, the tobacco part is in its own little section at the back, and you have to go through this little doorway with a guy standing there making sure you're over age. Mad where it's going. But yeah, they're probably going to get rid of the old vapes as well and all that soon here. They'll probably start talking about it. The worst thing I hate about the vapes, man, is the disposable ones. That stuff really annoys me. Like, I'm I'm not a fucking tree or environmentalist by any means, but I do love the planet, and I hate this this kind of capitalist waste society that we have, like, where people just selling stuff that are low cost and that are producing a massive amount of waste at the end of it, and we as a society then have to pay for that because it's waste that's going to last thousands of years there, possibly some of it. Mad. Any other comments out there now that I'm missing? Sorry, just flicking through the hot box there. Sean says, grow tobacco, grow with care is top, I'm told. That's something I always said to people, actually. Tobacco smokers is like, why don't you just grow your own tobacco, have a smoke of that and see if you really like it? Because most tobacco you buy today in the shops, it's laden with approved chemicals. And if you don't believe me, guys, you can just literally just do a quick Google search there of chemicals approved for use on tobacco. You look up the reasons of why these chemicals are used. So like some tobaccos have chemicals added to help keep the cigarette burning so it doesn't go out in you. This is why, say, rolling tobacco quite often or not is more preferential a choice rather than the fags, cigarette things. Because a rolling tobacco is most likely going to go out in you if you fall asleep while smoking it, say, in a drunken state. Whereas a cigarette will keep burning. It'll burn right to the end. So there you go, and that's because of the presence of a chemical. I believe it's benzene or something like that. I think it might be the chemical used to kind of help enhance the burning effect of tobacco. But that's just one of many chemicals approved for use in tobacco. Some of them are there to improve the flavor, taste, experience, and things like that. So do definitely look it up, guys. Know what you're consuming, and grow your own tobacco. See if you still like it. And there's actually certain tobacco strains out there as well that are really high in tobacco, in nicotine, and they contain other kind of alkaloid compounds, I believe, and they can be quite psychedelic as well in nature. So higher nicotine and alkaloid containing tobacco plants. I can't think of any varieties off the top of my head, but apparently, like, as the story goes, and it was a story that was told by Howard Marks in the PAV, that the native settlers, the Europeans who went to South America, and they noticed the natives were smoking this tobacco plant there, and they were really enjoying it, and it was very good to them or whatever. It was very beneficial for them. But the natives obviously didn't like these kind of travelers coming in for the Europeans invading their land and all of that stuff. So when they were leaving and they were asking about the tobacco plant, apparently they gave them the Nicotiana rustica, I believe was the tobacco plant that was brought up back to Europe and grown and used and smoked by some of the elites, because again, that was just who could afford to smoke tobacco back in those days, was the elitists in society. But the natives tricked them. They didn't give them the actual plant, the good one, the one with the alkaloids, the one that they were using as a traditional sacred medicine. They gave them the one that was just fucking tar-filled and nicotine-filled. But apparently that's the story anyway that was told by the late Howard Marks back in the PAV many years ago. Happy days. Barry Field says the illegal fag and drink market has gone through the roof here. And he also had said that there are lads spending the night delivering booze to different house parties. Nobody goes out anymore. Yeah, that's true, man. The price of drink is absolutely gone crazy over here. Even to go out and buy it from the off-license now, like the off-license is nearly at pub prices, and pub prices are just fucking in a league of their own these days. The price of going on a night out, drinking pints in the pub, it's getting astronomical here in Ireland. Most people actually, as you say, can't afford it, and they just choose to stay in and have house parties as a result. And I know there's a market around that. I know there's one page over on Facebook, and there's and I hope I'm not snitching on anybody, but he delivers drink up around the north side. I'm not going to even mention the name of the Facebook page, but delivers drink and fags at all hours. I think the delivery service is up until 6 o'clock in the morning. I think he advertises that, or her. I don't know the person behind it, but there's certainly a market there, right, for out of hours booze, because not only is the price crazy, but like our off licenses close at 10 p.m. here in Ireland. If you're not in Ireland, you know, Chilbert and others out there like you, Bobby, we close at 10 o'clock. So if you're a person who was like working and you forgot to go to the off license and you finish at like 10:30, you got no drink, you got no source to go get drink, and you're stuck. Then you're going to get onto this guy on Facebook if you're lucky enough to know about him, and they buy the drink. But you know, it's the government is screwing us in more ways than one. Like, they're closing the off licenses early, and they're putting the prices up to the prices that are driving people out of the pubs. And you know, it's just terrible, because it's a killer within Ireland as well, I suppose, if you're looking at it from the outside and you're a tourist coming to the country, because a lot of the times tourists come to the country would kind of speak fondly of visiting the many pubs within Ireland, because each pub would have its own little character and charm. And that's very much dying out now, I believe. It's being killed by this government, I suppose, through their health-led policies, as they call them, like, because like pub culture is it's slowly dying out. People can't afford to go out and have a few drinks anymore, and as you say, they're just staying at home. And that's definitely a bad thing, because a lot of these pubs then, as a result, are closing. There's less and less pubs staying open. And more pubs are just switching to serving food nowadays, and there's just no life left in them. It's a shame, really. Scatness says, that's why you use American Spirit, no additives. There you go, Scatness. There is repping a tobacco brand that prides itself on no additives to the tobacco after being dried and harvested. So there's no additives added to American Spirit. So that's the closest tobacco you're going to get to growing your own at home. Because if you grow your own at home, you're not going to add no additives to it either. So if you don't want to grow your own, if you want something that's additive free, American Spirit. And that is not a paid for advertisement. Because I know myself, I went from smoking fags, using fags and joints, to using rolling tobacco, because I believe rolling tobacco contained less additives. And then I was going to switch to American Spirit, but then I just gave up altogether. So it was a bit of a process there for myself even to get off them. Jake Moran asking, do you know much about HHC? What I do know about HHC is that it's a semi-synthetic compound, and in what that means is that it's derived from an organic compound, using kind of chemical manipulation, and yeah, it's also a compound that gets you high, stoned. I've no experience with it myself. I've no first-hand experience, but I do know a few people who speak of it, and there's been nothing negative said too much about it anyway. But again, it's just another compound it's in a legal area apparently. Apparently they're going to be making it illegal now soon enough, and there's probably going to be something else coming along to replace it. But yeah, it's a semi-synthetic compound, a bit of chemistry involved in producing it from an organic compound. That organic compound is hemp variety cannabis. So it would be cannabis that's high in CBD. I believe it's produced by manipulating the CBD molecule. It does actually occur, HHC actually does occur in very minute quantities actually in the cannabis plant organically itself. But the stuff that's being sold on the market is not that, because it's so minute, it wouldn't be feasible to extract and produce products from it. It's been synthetically derived from an organic compound, therefore semi-synthetic compound, and there's not much known about it, to be honest. Like the research, as it's so kind of it's so new, it's novel, there's not a whole lot known about it. So I would be proceeding with caution around it until there's more known about it. If I was to be given my recommendation, if you want to get high and stoned, I would be going for high THC cannabis. This HHC stuff, I would be cautious about it, because I just don't know about it. You know, if it was me, my body, I would probably try it just to see what the crack is with it. But would I be using it actively as a daily instead of cannabis? No, definitely not. But I would certainly try it just to see what the effects are, the experience. But daily use, no. Cannabis has been used for thousands of years by humans. As long as we've had evidence of recording in history, cannabis has been used. HHC, it's novel, it's new. It's only around the last, 12 months, 2 years. No thanks. That's just my my position on it. Scatna says drink prices are another reason for folks using drugs. 10 quid to keep you going through the night. Why would you spend 100 on drinks? Yeah, that's true. I know a few people who will go out, they'll buy a pint, and they'll be just doing coke, and they'll just sip on the pint then for the evening. They might have a second pint, but they wouldn't really drinking. And they say that they would like see cocaine as actually being a cheaper night out than going drinking, because if they drink too much, then you get carried away with tapping there in the nightclub. Like Jake Moran saying here, and when it's legalised in Ireland, what model you want to see the country use? Government run shop fronts owned by independent owners, or the Spanish social club model? Well, I suppose if it's legalised, then we won't be able to do the Spanish social club model, as that's still in the grey area. But I see what you're saying there in terms of a kind of a social club model where it's community owned and orientated, kind of not really profit driven, I suppose, is how it's somewhat seen. Although a lot of the clubs in Spain certainly are profit driven. But what would I like to see? I would like to see something maybe like the German model, actually, to be very honest, where they allow a period, maybe a 2 to 5 year period, where you allow for community orientated, not for profit, cannabis social clubs, dispensaries, production companies set up shop here in Ireland. And those companies be run and operated by members of the community for the community, and the profits generated within that going back then into the community. Lots of jobs being created as a result. People can make money from it in terms of wages from jobs, but there will be no motive there to be making extremely large profits through overpriced cannabis or heavy marketing or anything like that. It would be just simply, the motivation would be high quality cannabis and a good environment in which people can enjoy that in, where they're not going to be bombarded with like buy this and buy that and marketing all around the gaff. I would hate to see a market where we instantly open the door to the likes of, and I mean no dislike towards these people or anything, but the likes of cookies or some Curaleaf or Tilray or any of those big names that are out there already established in the cannabis industry in different countries. I would certainly not like to see those guys be able to just come in here, get an instant foothold in the country because they've got lots of money, and then to just destroy the industry like they've made a hymns of it in certain places that they already operate into already. So I would like to see it be community orientated. The German model, I believe, is certainly looking to be a good one at that. They're talking about it being not for profit, community kind of orientated, German grown cannabis. So I would like to see the same for Ireland. Hopefully we will see something like that. And that's not to say that people, in time, as I said, in about 5 years' time, after we allow the local industry to get itself established and all of that, then open the doors up to kind of the for-profit industry in like 5 years' time, where people can actually just set up and not have to be enough for profit and reinvest the profits back into the community. Just open the door. But I would believe that's enough of a window there to 5 years to get that community orientated industry a foothold to be able to compete then with these kind of big companies coming in with all of this money and stuff like that. But if we don't get that head start, sadly we'll be kind of having the likes of Jeff Bezos and I'm coming over here just buying out the entire industry and owning it all. I don't know, but yeah, that's my opinion. That's how I'd like to see it anyway. I think the Germans are doing something good. Not seeing too much on Malta there yet. I think the Maltese model as well, there's something around that. But I think the Germans are just going a bit further than the Maltese, I believe. Like, I don't think the Germans are excluding tourists, I believe, from the social clubs in Germany. I don't think so anyway yet. But I have not seen anything there yet about that. Roving reporter saying too much cocaine and alcohol in pubs makes them violent. If weed was legal, it would chill them out more too. 100%. Like, if people had the alternative choice there when they're going out on a night out, if they're going to have a smoke or a few drinks or to take a line, then I definitely think you'll be seeing a lot different outcomes there. As I think a lot of people are drinking excessively while taking cocaine. I think when you're taking cocaine, you probably don't really need to be drinking all that much. and more education needs to be done there around that. Also around the use of cocaine as well. I think people are probably just taking a bit too much cocaine as well on a night out. They need to be educated around not giving into that inner voice, because it is a very what would you call it? It's a drug that makes you want more. Cocaine. When you're on it, like, you know, you're kind of coming down at the end of the night. You're just like, oh, there's got to be someone out there with a bag. Come on, you ring somebody. You know, there's probably people out there now laughing, you know, bringing back memories of them sitting there at the end of a night, you know, not wanting to come down. That's probably more to do with yokes, actually. At least that's where I have a memory of that. Not wanting to come down. Oh, you need to make it last. You need to get more yokes. Since then, I've trained myself to actually appreciate the come down, because it's actually enjoyable too if you just appreciate it, sit there and enjoy it. Just be with your mind for a while. It's nice. The VFI are missing a trick. They should be lobbying to sell it in pubs. Yeah, it's true. That's the Vintners Federation Ireland. That's the guys behind the drink messages in Ireland. Tinkle Tinker saying, yeah, Paul Lefwick, people can't choose a less harmful drug than alcohol. Depressing laws, yeah, Chris Luke is fine with the status quo. Chris is always going to be fine with the status quo. As it benefits him, like, I suppose, in a certain sense, like he has a sense of importance there now. He's up there in the emergency departments. He gets to speak down on people. Puts himself up there as, like, you heard him there within the assembly at one point. He talks about, like, addicts. He talks about him. You can kind of hear his whole demeanor change, even when he talks about, like, administering Narcan or naloxone to a person suffering an overdose. He even changed, like, into a kind of a very derogatory accent, a kind of I'm not too sure the area of Dublin that was described as, but it was like a pure Dublin accent, and it was like, wrecking me balls, bad. I can't even do it, like, you know, because he's got more of a lingo to me now, like, but you know what I mean, wrecking me balls, bad. And the boys pulling out the liquid IVs and stuff and storming out of the thing. But he has a very derogatory view of people who use drugs, that's for sure. I'm not going to go off on Chris Luke again now. Whoop, wop, wop, whoop. What's happening out there? Whoop, wop, wop, whoop. Says, yeah, I was just thinking about HHC if you're going to touch up on it. I might put together a video on it. If I get, I know one of the lads who supplies it, and I trust him. And if you're going to get it in Ireland, I would be definitely giving a shout out there to Relief. I've got good trust there for the man behind that business and his partner as well. So if I was going to get HHC in Ireland, that's who I'd be going to. I'd be going to the guys at Relief, and yeah, if I'm going to try it, that's probably who I'm going to try it from. And if I get some off them, I'll probably do a little video on it, and I might even go into some of the science that's available on it at the moment as well, because there's probably a lot to it, alright. And what's coming next as well, I think is going to be even more important, as I am hearing HHC is going to be banned, and there's already talks of new compounds coming out there again. Certain ones around CBD, where it's got more CBD of the CBD molecule in it and less of this kind of HC side of it, like. But anyway, Tinkle Tink says, if I hear people praising the Portugal model, I lose my head. It's far from the ideal model. For example, look at what Germany's doing. The Portuguese model is good insofar as they had good services and supports there, which were further enhanced through the change in the policy over there. That's as far as it goes, you know, and also I suppose the knock-on effect then of a reduction in the amount of people coming through the criminal system and all of that stuff. That was also another benefit from it, but that's kind of where it stops. You know, you still have the problem over there in Portugal where, as the video I put out there a few years ago, where I got ripped off buying hash over there from the street dealers because they're selling counterfeit products on the street. And it's more or less known that there's warnings out there. If you search up online about buying drugs in Portugal, you warned about counterfeit drugs. Cassidus Drug has done a few videos on it as well, where he made some art out of the counterfeit drugs he bought. I believe he bought a bag of heroin that turned out to be nothing but cinnamon. You know, so that's just an example of a failure of the Portuguese model, because now there's a reliance there on, say, some of the services that are enabled by the decriminalisation model, where they can test your drugs. Now, these services, they wouldn't actually be needed if there was a regulated supply of drugs. So you increase the burden in another area by reducing it in other areas because of the decriminalisation approach. It's a shortcoming of the Portuguese model, if anything. And I think that needs to be talked about more, is the shortcomings of the Portuguese models. It's like we know all the places that it did work. Where didn't it work and why didn't it work? And the reason why it didn't work quite often or not is because they didn't go far enough in their policy change. They needed to regulate the drug supply. And Dr. João Glau, who I met personally through the CIT SSDP, thanks to the likes of Cáceres Drogas out there, he said that too, that the Portuguese model needs to go further next time around. Hey, mister. And they need to legalise it and regulate the supply of drugs. I'm going to have to be wide here now because this fella's after learning how to turn off the desktop. Coming up. It's a happy birthday to everybody. It's the show's birthday. We're 3 today. Yeah, the show is older than you. Yeah, it is. Isn't it? It's like everybody out there. Well, you see yourself. Elijah's big enough now to open the studio door. Yeah. He's having a grand laugh now because the green screen is set up. He's just like, oh, what's this? Hey, mister, do you want to go back out to mommy? Hey, go to mommy. No, alright, so you're coming up to me. Yeah. We're going to be wrapping her up here anyway in a couple of minutes, guys, so we let this little fella finish it out with us. Just means no goodbye bong hit. We might offload him for that. Everybody saying hello to you. He's just looking at himself in the screen. Scatness Air says, but Germany screwed the plan up in many other ways now. Seeds have to be federally approved variants and strains. Ooh. Hey. Alright, you can have them. You have them. Put it on that. Alright, let me sit you down. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, he's waiting to hear Bob Marley come on now. But no, instead he's just going to hear my voice coming through to him. But Scatness there saying no consumption in clubs or lounges, purely grow collectives and criminal record checks. Yeah, you see, there's, again, as I said, there's probably shortcomings in the Germany model. I was just looking at it simply from one or two points of view in terms of the community side of it and all of that, but there's certainly shortcomings, man. That there's no federally approved variants and strains, so obviously they're aiming in there to reduce the THC levels. I'd imagine is probably behind that's the reason in there. So again, another effort to appease the prohibitionists. So yeah, you're spot on there, Scatness. Nice one for pointing that out as well, because I don't think there's anywhere that's got it right just yet. But they're certainly getting better though. Oh, 1 second. Let's see if we can buy him off with some cake. Here. No, he's gone. He's behind the green screen. I'm going to eat the cake now. John Finnegan actually echoing support there for Relief in Dungarvan as well. Oh. You're alright. Oh. Giving up because he banged his head off the chair. Yeah, the boss man comes to town and he just takes over the show, doesn't he? See all the comments coming in there now for Elijah. Paul Lefwick there saying people in law think they're psychologists when talking about pot. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people speaking outside of their field of expertise when it comes to drugs, that's for sure. You have the likes of Chris Luke being able to make assessments of individuals and what they've taken, even though they have no evidence as to what they've taken and what's driving their drug-induced psychosis, as he's called it. But all of a sudden, now he's an expert drug detector. What's up? Look what I have. Whoa. Oh, yum. I'm keeping busy now for a sec, the cake. John says, Elijah Bossman in the house. Teresa as well saying that he's gotten so big. Yes, he's a big troublemaker. Always getting up to mischief. Ever since he just started walking around, like he's just constantly scanning. Oh, what can I get myself up to next? Like, just like he's looking at me here now because he's picking off toppings from the cake that Karina brought in there a few minutes ago. Hey, John, it wasn't that hard of a kick, John. Boy. Nice. Nom. Giving me some now as well. Oh, yum. Oh, I'm gonna show everybody what you got. What you got? Oh, did you get cake? Yeah, that nice. Yeah, yeah. Oh, you can't eat that. Oh, jeez, he's eating the candle. He has 2 bites taken out of the candle. You can't eat the candle, you weasel, and he's spitting it back out. There you go. Yeah, you can eat the chocolate, all right, but not the candle. What another. All right, so guys, it's been an absolute pleasure to be able to get back here to you to basically spend a bit of time ranting about Chris Luke there at the recent Citizens Assembly, but I suppose most importantly, shaking or cleaning the cobwebs off of the hot box there, getting to catch up with all yourselves as well, guys. It's great to see such a big audience here as well on the return. I was very worried that maybe because I'd been absent for so long that there was going to be a much smaller audience here of, like, say, less than 10 people. Even though I would have appreciated each and every one of you, but to see, like, I think at one point there during the stream we had nearly 50 people there watching. So guys, we really do appreciate the support that everybody has given the show and myself personally over the last 3 years. It's invaluable to me. The donations that have come in as well, they've really helped out an awful lot. I know you might have noticed there, actually YouTube have taken away the monetization features from the show, but nonetheless the show is going to go on even if I have to pay for it all myself. I don't mind. We started that way, and if we have to finish that way, we'll keep going. But honestly, to date, the support that's come in has been absolutely amazing. You've able to reduce the financial burden there on me in hosting the show and stuff like that. But the support I've gotten emotionally from people out there, the friends that I've made on this, there's not enough money in the world there to be able to buy it. It's invaluable, it is. Hey, mister, this fella's making quick work of this cake here. Like, I better start shutting this down so we can keep keep a slice or two for somebody else. There's just finger holes now all over it. See, you're just clawing out the bits. Oh yeah, don't worry, but I'm putting the cake back down. He's shouting at me now to put the cake back down. No, that nice, yeah? Oh, yum. Oh, I cut you a piece of this in a second. Nice one, Gary. Rashers, cheers, guys. Guys, honestly, each and every one out there, I look forward to being back on doing this on a regular basis anyway. We'll be a bit more organised in the future shows. We hope to change the form up a little bit. Record some of the news pieces, have those pre-recorded so we come in here. I can just play different segments and then we can converse about it, and I can interact a little bit more then with the hotbox as these segments are playing. So a couple of plans there to change it up, improve things a little bit. But I just can't wait to be able to get back and interact more on a regular basis with you and push this campaign, give this campaign the push it needs to get it over the line, to get the change that we all so dearly want to see. So again, thanks guys. Thanks everybody. Scatness, thanks. Barry, thanks. Finnegan, thanks guys. You're all amazing. So many of you out there, guys, have made this show what it is, so thanks very much. You want to say bye to everybody? You want to say bye-bye? Run up and say bye-bye. You want me to kiss? Say, want me to kiss? No? Alright, so he's too busy eating cake. So slán, guys, slán, céimhnír fáilt, and Schleinte, all of that stuff, you know. Get me the fault actually is a welcome, isn't it? Not a goodbye. Slán Martin, and great to celebrate the birthday with you, and nice to have you back at the mic. Yeah, it's a pleasure, guys. So guys, right, enough with the long Irish goodbye. Catch you all later. I'll be keep an eye out for the scheduled stream. We're now streaming over on Rumble as well, guys, so if you have an account over on Rumble, give it an old follow over there as we increase the amount of platforms that we're streaming to. So nice one again, guys. Bye-bye.